Hey, Steve Morley here, director at Success Publishing, and I wanted to share this video, kind of a tutorial, because there's a lot of individuals that are either in the candidate stage or you've already been approved and you're in the stage of actually crafting your chapter. And there's a lot of anxiety around this. And Matt has been doing this, helping individuals become part of a book since 2013, actually at the end of 2012. So we really know what we're doing and we really have an ability to help streamline this for you. But I want to really give you an edge right now that's going to take that anxiety and just kind of deflate it like the air going out of a balloon, okay? There's no reason for that. There's no need for it when you can follow what we're going to give you here. And there's basically three parts to this strategy, okay? Number one, courageous vulnerability. Number two, has to be with experience, not theory. And number three is the seed, which we call your secret formula. It is your secret sauce. And so that's what I'm going to talk about is those 3 points right now, okay? Courageous vulnerability, what does that mean? What is the element that we have to have in here? And that is experience, not theory. And then number three, what is your seed? What is your secret to success? What is it, that thing? The French use a term, je ne sais quoi. It's almost an unexplainable something or another. And I love that term. I can't speak French, obviously. I'm from Texas. But I love the term. I love the idea. But it does help us to describe what is that thing that you are destined to share with the rest of the world that is something that you have learned while you went through the maze, while you fell down again and again and again. And along the way, something kept getting you up. So that's what we want to talk about. We're going to go into that here real quickly. So let's start off with this. What is courageous vulnerability? Okay, courageous vulnerability from Dr. Brene Brown. I love her. If you haven't read her books or listened to her top 10 TED Talk of all times, then you should jump onto YouTube and whatever, type her name in the search bar, okay, Dr. Brene Brown, and you will see about a 15, maybe 17-minute explanation. One of the best speakers I've ever seen, but wholly scientific in her approach, but gives you the basis of what we call courageous vulnerability. If you look at Matt's success, when he became an author, the very beginning of his book, The Unemployed Millionaire, begins with a ultimate level of courageous vulnerability. It is not what you see by a lot of these other, what I call fake individuals that profess to know how to succeed, and their life is this what do you want to call it, glitzy and glamorous thing that doesn't connect to most people because they feel that it is untrue, that it's unreal. Even though it may be, too often people, they get in front of a camera and they create this unreal world that doesn't connect with individuals. And see, the thing that is most important about courageous vulnerability is being raw. It's being real. And it's starting back at the very beginning, kind of like where Matt started, is he began at that place and time right after he'd gotten out of the Marine Corps. He was trying to build his business as an entrepreneur. He was sitting over in Louisiana. He was trying to sell above the ground swimming pools in an environment with leads that were horrible. And he was so successful that he found himself living in his car. That's right. And living in his car, not only did he live in his car, but that meant that before he went to those appointments, he had to shower up somehow because you're sitting there in Louisiana in that humidity during the summer. And guess what? You're probably not going to smell that good. So he was going into gas station bathrooms into the lavatory, and that's what he was having to do and use to take a shower. And one day he finally got to that point where it was late at night, a thunderstorm had him awakened, I guess you'd say, from sitting in the back of this old church that he had found and parked that night just to sleep, and woke him up. The sky just basically being ripped open with thunder and lightning, and he just realized that he stunk, and that he had to do something about it. So he found himself getting out of the car and going underneath the rain gutter in the back of this church at 2 o'clock in the morning. And that's where he found that broken gutter and just basically stripped down and took a shower there with some soap underneath that gutter. And getting back into the car after that event, that was the low point of his life. He hit rock bottom. That, my friend, is a story and a beginning that becomes your foundation. And it's the place of courageous vulnerability. People are are scared. They are petrified of going to that place where you are absolutely vulnerable by telling that low point in your life. What they don't understand, and what Matt has figured out, and what we've helped hundreds of other authors learn to use, is that place of beginning point is foundational, and it is most important if you are going to do the most important thing that you're missing right now in your career, in your business, in your life. And that is when we try to airbrush things, when we try to gloss things over and tell things that are embellished. We call it putting our best foot forward. What it doesn't do is it doesn't connect with people. It doesn't link soul to soul, spirit to spirit. Because here's the thing that everybody has in common: success. No, not correct. They don't have success in common. We all want success, and we sometimes are able to claw and experience little experience. So we get a little keyhole perspective sometime, and we experience it like that bubble when you were a child and you would blow it with the solution, and it would blow up and you would see it and experience for just a second, and boom, then it's gone. Okay? That's what we all have in common, and then we spend the rest of our life desperately trying to find and relive that euphorical moment again that we call success. So if you're going to connect with people, which is the big thing that people don't do, they don't connect, they're not relating, therefore there's no relationships. If there's no relationships, how can you ever be able to help people solve their problems, deal with their pain by eliminating it, and put away the panic that's keeping them awake at night? You can't. So you have to relate to them. How do you relate to them? It's not about telling fake stories about success and airbrushing them and then people getting that gut instinct and going, wait a second, this isn't for real. What you have to do is you have to connect with them at that deepest level, and that is by relating to them on what is most relatable to all human beings, and that is failure. It is the rock bottom experiences. And for your audience, for you to connect to your audience, for that group of individuals that Matt's story does not connect to the story that Steve's story, that our other 180 something authors that have joined our team here in the last couple of years and become part of our family, what you are telling, what Matt teaches, is that you tell the story that is not like identical to everyone else, but it's relatable. Okay, that story that Matt have, you don't have to have had the story of getting out under a gutter at 2 o'clock in the morning and taking a shower because you were living in your car. But everyone has that similar experience where they hit their version of that similar story. That's where you begin. So when you're trying to think about what am I going to write my story about, it's not the airbrush, it's not the gloss. It begins with that most vulnerable state that when you tell it, you are exhibiting, based on Dr. Brene Brown's research as a social scientist, you are exhibiting the ultimate level of courage. Okay, so that's what we do. Number one is we begin with that courageous vulnerability. Number two, when I say we, Matt and I agreed when we are working on this project together that we absolutely will not accept someone that has a great story based on theory. Okay, theory is what a lot of us experienced when we went to college or university. We had great instructors that had gone through a lot of education, and they would tell us all of these things, and then we would take tests on them, and we would pass or fail those tests based on our knowledge. The missing element there is that knowledge is not the thing that's going to take you to the next level. It's not the thing for sure that's going to relate to other people. It's experience. And the reason why I use that professor analogy is most professors, have not been in the real world. They are in their academic environments and they're awesome at teaching, the book knowledge, but they haven't actually been out in the trenches and done it. So if you're going to tell that ultimate story that is going to connect with individuals, then we are looking for your story that comes from experience. It begins with courageous vulnerability, and the experience moves through that of what did you learn from falling down again and again and again, and getting lost in the maze of this thing called life, and trying different routes and going to the dead ends and feeling the pain of abandonment, feeling the betrayal of individuals that profess to love us, that profess that we could trust them. That going through the fear and the agony of being isolated and alone and even depressed and anxious and all of those things that create that panic that we feel in the middle of the night, and we feel like we can't breathe because we don't know what to do. We don't know who to connect with. We don't know what to do next. And you are being chosen now because your experience is not just knowledge, but it's that you have been in the maze, got lost in the maze, spent many years going down dark corners and even giving up and quitting and refusing to get back up one more time. And then something inside of you from somewhere, maybe otherworldly, lifted you back up. It sparked and brought your life back. And through that ability to have the grit to stand up one more time, to put one foot in front of the other, you were able to find the right path that led you out of the maze and led you to your life now that I refer to as your freedom. Now, it doesn't mean that you have gotten to the ultimate mountaintop. It means that your life has moved from that, I don't know how I'm going to make this, to a better point in life. And we are all a work in progress. We're not looking for authors that already have everything down and they make no mistakes, because that's simply not real. All of us are in a process, if we are in a personal improvement environment, of moving to our better version. There is no such thing as the person getting to their best. It is that constant journey of moving and pushing ourselves and learning and studying and observing and paying attention and introspecting from those setbacks, those failures, those things that don't come out the way we wanted them to. But instead of being down on ourselves, we look at what we've learned, and therefore there's no failure because it's a learning experience now. How you transmute those events and those periods of our life is what we want you to write your story about. That's the experiential part. And that's where we come to the ultimate thing, is when you have a story, that's a narrative, okay? The narrative is what has people interested. It what captures their attention. It is that je ne sais quoi that people remember because they remember stories. They don't remember facts and figures and formulas like we had to learn when we were going, to school and to college and so forth. And yet that's what we see too many people trying to do. They have their 6-step formula. They have their algorithm. They have this, A plus B equals C. And they tell these very sterile processes, these methods. And the problem is that's not how humans' mind work. They don't recall that. What we recall is stories. And that's what we love them. Since the time we were little kids and we're listening to our grandparents or our parents or other people maybe that are in our environments, and they tell stories. We all remember when we were back in, pre-K or whatever, we all had our milk and cookies or whatever before our nap time, and we all gathered around the teacher and we got to hear a story. That's where everything begins. So we come back to that. It is the thing that is most primal in our DNA. And when we tell those stories, when you tell your story, what you're doing is you're capturing the individual's attention. You're telling them something that's raw, something that is real, something that is unadulterated, that when they hear it, they go, wow, this person is for real. I can relate to your story. And here's the key thing. When they hear your story, we want you to be able, and we're going to show you how to do this, we want you to take your formula. We call it the seed. And it is that one thing that helped you get back up that again and again and again. And that seed is what we want you to take and embed inside of your story, because it is your story that people will remember. That's what you tell. That's how you select what is the right story for you to put in this book with Matt. When you put your formula there, and you say, well, I don't know what my formula is. I just know that I'm able to get up, and I've done it again and again. And I know that people say that I have grit, and I know people say that I should write my story. But I don't know if I've ever sat down and actually figured out what is it that gives me that ability to rise one more time when other people decide just to give up and quit. And here's what I want you to think about. There is a formula. There's always a formula. You may not be aware of it, so I'm going to give you some examples, okay? There may be something in your mind's eye that when you're down, face down, like I have, face planted, okay, totally wiped out, huge disaster in life. And while I'm there, still in the dirt, face on the ground, dark in the maze, there may be that word that shows up like a huge word on a white piece of typing paper. And that word may have something that is so meaningful to you that when you see it, it inspires you. It gives you that fuel. It sparks back to life that thing inside of you that wanted to actually wither and go out. If it's not a word, maybe it's a phrase. Maybe it's something that you hear, not with your external ear, but something that's inside, okay? Something that may be a mantra or a phrase that may come from maybe the voice of a parent. It could be a minister, could be a coach, could even be a professor or some instructor. Maybe it's one of your closest and deepest friends, that relationship that is like a brother or sister. And when you're down and you feel like you ache all over and you have no strength left in you, you hear this phrase. Maybe it's a whisper and it just echoes. And that phrase reminds you of an event or a time. And it gives you that spark to find the strength to just push yourself back up and start moving forward again. Now, if it's not a word, if it's not something that you hear, then it may be something that you see that is a video. And there are two types of videos that motivate individuals. The first one is a video of that point in place, kind of like Matt, where he can remember back that ultimate bottom point, that place that he never, ever will visit again. And that becomes the place that's kind of like your backstop. It's where you put your back against. It's what you have vowed that you will never go back there again. But you can still remember the quick video that brings back all the visceral feelings inside. That was the pain and the agony and the betrayal and the abandonment and the distrust and all those things that you felt your soul collapsing about. And you survived that event, and you can now take that knowledge and share with other individuals how to find their video, to find their mantra, to see that word that is going to push them away from what they absolutely will not accept again. Now, the other video is called a towards video. Instead of away from video, what I will absolutely not allow, and that's what I put my back to. There's also the video that you want to move towards, okay? And that towards event is maybe a place that you haven't experienced yet. Or if you experienced it, it was like that bubble that blew up for just a second. And in that micro moment was just absolutely perfection. And you can still go back there, standing on that mountain peak, putting your foot on the top of that achievement, feeling what it feels like, the gravity, the weight of your whole body sitting on the sole of your feet, pressing through your shoes. And you can hear the sound of the gravel underneath your sole as it kind of grips into that mountain peak experience. And as you're standing there, you feel taller than you've ever felt before. You feel the rays of the sun that are cracking the dawn, that you can feel the warmth touching your face. You can feel that gentle breeze that's like a whisper. It feels like that intimate kiss of someone that is meaningful to you. And all of this experience, that fresh smell of being at that mountain point, of experiencing that place that is almost a fairy tale, but it has become so visceral that you go back there again and again, and it is your respite, it is your Shangri-La, it is your Eden, It is that place where you can go and rest and know that you are going to experience that place again, not like the momentary vapor of that bubble that popped, but that place that you can go and it is your trophy experience. That all of these times you have gotten lost in the maze, it is what caused you to rise again one more time. And it is what has motivated you not just to get outside of the maze, to achieve the level of success that you've got to right now, but it's also that part of you that has inspired you to do that incredibly selfless thing, the reason why you're here, and that is you become a torchbearer. You have a torch, a light. It is your experience. It is your passion and desire. It is your ultimate why, as Simon Sinek would call it. It is the reason why you get up every day, and it is the reason why you have searched out this process with Matt. The reason that you have attracted this to your life, because you've done everything else. You've done all the motivation events, you've read the books, you have your goal setting down, you got great mentors, you work for awesome, incredible companies, you're an ethical person, you're super passionate about helping people, you bring products or services to the marketplace that truly serve the greater good. And yet, you're still a grinder. You're still a grinder because that means that you do all those things right, but then you have no reward for it. Yes, there is that feeling of reward, that spirit that when you help one other soul and they are freed from being imprisoned within the maze, and you go back in with your torch and you find one individual that is laying there on the ground that's given up and quit, and you show them your roadmap, your blueprint, and then you help them get up one more time and you lead them out of misery. Yes, that's exactly what we're doing. But I'm talking about doing this at scale in front of audiences, whether that's Zoom audiences that are online or offline in front of masses, like Matt standing in front of 10,000 people in an arena and having everybody chant your name because you don't have to be introduced when you step onto the platform. That is the experience that I'm talking about, because you have made that level of impact in that audience that is not only waiting for you, but if you do not bring your message, your story that has your seed inside of it, you sentence them to being left inside of that prison called the maze. Because that audience is your audience. It's not Matt's audience, not my audience, it's not our other authors' audiences. It's your audience. And that's the story that you have to tell and take your formula, whether it's a word, whether it's a auditory phrase, or whether it's a short video of what you will not accept anymore, which you absolutely must experience. You wrap that and put that into your story. That's what you write about. That is what we have perfected. That's what we're here to help you do. When you put that together, then there's some other things that you'll do called your capsulizing of your story. We'll show you about how to do that as well. But this right now was to explain and take away that anxiety so that you're no longer worried about what you will write or what the purpose of your writing is. Now you're crystal clear with exactly what we want you to write and how we want you to write it, with your story, with your seed embedded inside of it, okay? With the courageous vulnerability. That's your baseline. And being able to tell it from your experience, not from theory, okay? I hope this video helped you, and I love having the opportunity to share with you what is going to take that experience in your life, the journey that you have been on, and be able to move it into hundreds, thousands, and even millions of people's lives so that this world becomes better because you chose to do that step that most people do not. Thanks for your time.